The COVID-19 crisis has put everyone in a situation where we're now working from home. When working from home, it's important to remain extra diligent in maintaining good cybersecurity practices. So today on the podcast, we talk about how to keep your real estate business secure when working from home.
You can be relaxed at home, but never online.
Welcome back to Talking Real, brought to you by the Oklahoma Association of Realtors. You're tuned into episode 116 of Talking Real, back in the remote studios of Jeff and Nabil. And Nabil, how's your day going?
Day's going well. Just brewed up some coffee and, we're kicking it off.
Absolutely. Same thing here, having a little morning coffee with my friend Nabil while we record a podcast. So
everything's the same.
Real excited about that. Yeah. And I'll tell you, of course, we're still in the midst of the stay at home and the COVID-19 outbreak. And man, I don't know, yesterday I was in a little bit of a funk. I just was feeling the COVID blues. I mean, I don't know what else to call it, but it's this lifestyle's starting to wear on me a little bit. I like the slow down. I like that I'm not feeling like I'm having to rush from one thing to the next, and I'm just constantly in a state of never having a day off. I enjoy that. But I don't know. Yesterday I was just feeling a little down about the whole thing. So I think today's a better day though.
Yeah, I think it's because the weather's getting nicer and you want to be out there, but you can't, be fully out there.
Right.
So I think that's gonna affect people a little bit right now.
Yeah. That I was talking to, my wife last night, and we were both saying like, man, I miss my friends. I miss going to the office and seeing my work friends. I miss, going to the gym and seeing my gym friends. And so, while we do have each other, but still missing out on some of that social interaction. So,
yeah, online can only go so far.
Absolutely. All that to say, I'm glad that we have the opportunity to have a little interaction today because it's as close as we can get, and I enjoy it.
Yeah,
I enjoy it. So
me too.
It's gonna be a good episode. I'm excited. So in the meantime, we've got some resources that we've put out for people, really more work related, not necessarily how to deal with the coronavirus blues if you've got those too, but go on over to okrrealtors.com/coronavirus. Again, we've got a bunch of stuff. I did about an hour-long Facebook Live where we talked about a number of issues related to being essential employment, some tips in there for ongoing work, how to manage those things. We've got a bunch of resources from NAR posted as well. There's a ton of stuff there that I think can be helpful if you've got questions about how to continue on with business right now during this kind of crazy time.
Yeah, like you were saying, just a ton of different resources on a variety of different topics. So, you're not curing the coronavirus blues, but helping you work through those.
Absolutely. And work is still going on, So I think I mentioned it before that we closed on our old house while this was going on. And I've seen plenty of other stories out there of people still working. I know people working safely and those kinds of things. In fact, Our friend Jesse Teehee, who is the chair of our professional standards committee, just listed a house that is like across the street and 2 down. And I've got another realtor that lives right across the street from us that we've kind of become friends with. And I saw her outside the other day, and she said, "Well, I'm going to a showing, and I've got my gloves, I've got my mask, I've got my hand sanitizer." And so she was well prepared as well. So
nice.
It's good to see. In fact, I just saw Jesse yesterday. He was over there doing some video filming because he was talking about, in where we're at right now, that it's not necessarily something he's used a lot of in the past, but he's putting together some videos and things like that he can use so that he can help market that property. So I love to see people out there trying new things.
Yeah, and that's cool because a lot of the realtors that didn't do a lot of video, like you're saying, Jesse didn't do too much of that. He's going to pick up this skill, and it's going to become normal for him to video a property every time.
So I'll tell you, a moment of honesty here. We just had to take a little sidestep because I'm in my office at home and my printer just decided to start making noise. And the difficulties of working from home arise. You know, it's not all it's cracked up to be sometimes. And of course, we've kind of struggled through figuring out how to continue to do podcast episodes and have guests on, which incidentally, I hope you checked out last week's episode where we had State President Amy Blado on. And even in that instance, we had multiple hiccups. We had to use a backup platform to try to get the recording done. I mean, man, we're figuring it all out. We're all forced into a new situation of figuring out how to work in a little bit different way. So, goodness gracious.
It's good to stay on our toes.
Absolutely. And really on that note, really does bring us into the topic that we wanted to talk about today. Because when you're working from home, you know, there's something that we've talked about a number of times on Talking Real, and this is about being secure, data secure, keeping your work files secure, just in general, electronic security, internet security, those kinds of things. And now more than ever, I think it's important to have a little refresher on, and just a reminder of how important it is to be safe and secure when you're working from home. Just because, you know, if you think about it, when you're working from home, you tend to be a little bit more relaxed at home, probably not quite as diligent, and you may not have the same tools that you do in the office. Mm-hmm. Now, you know, a lot of realtors spend a lot of time working from home already. You know, it's a mobile business, constantly on the go, those kinds of things. So people are already going to be ready for this, but it's a good time to have that reminder, because especially in a time of a panic or a crisis, there's always people that are willing to take advantage of someone as well. So I think it's a good time for a refresher, like we talked about. And
now the bulk of the work is being done at home, you know, because before you could go out to a coffee shop, you might pop into the office for a little bit. You had places that you could go to work, but now that's all shut down. So really, it's all mainly just at home. And like you were saying, you might have tools at your business that were already in place, like a firewall and things like that were protecting you without you even knowing about it. But at home, I think we have to be a little more cognizant.
Absolutely. You know, we avoid some of the pitfalls of going to Starbucks and working on an open Wi-Fi, those kinds of things at home. But not to say that there aren't still other issues that we need to be aware of. So,
right.
Well, what do you think, Nabil? Let's talk about some of these concepts that we can use to make sure that everybody stays safe and secure. Because again, we still have this issue of being remote. You know, maybe you've got a transaction going on. If you weren't communicating electronically through email and things like that with your clients, you certainly are now. So, you know, we always have concerns about wire fraud, those kinds of things, hacked emails, all of that. So let's get started, Nabil. You take the first tip for folks.
Let's do it. So I would say the biggest thing working from home is using a secure password for your Wi-Fi. Because, you know, a lot of times our Wi-Fi password at home might be a little less secure because we're sharing it with friends or we're sharing it with people that come in our house. So we want something that's easy to communicate, right? You could just be like, something easy that you could tell people, be like, here's my Wi-Fi password, so you don't have to dig through and bring out this alphanumeric code.
Right.
But it is important to have that alphanumeric code, a secure password that is not easily cracked and people can get on your router. Because as soon as someone gets access to your router, they have access to everything that's on there. All Absolutely. The devices, all communications. So it's really important to have that secure password. Absolutely.
You know, I think of something like you could have a neighbor that's using your Wi-Fi if it's not password protected.
Oh yeah.
You know, I mean, I remember living in an apartment complex, and you could go on and you could see all the open Wi-Fi, routers that people had. And so, you got to be careful about that, because then you're giving people that it's not even somebody that you've invited to your house and shared your Wi-Fi with. It's somebody you don't even know could be accessing it. Mm-hmm. And that is it's the vulnerability of having open Wi-Fi is significant. You can go on YouTube and look at some videos of what people are able to access if they have access to your Wi-Fi, the information that they can see and skim off of that. So definitely make sure you've got a password on your Wi-Fi connection.
Yep.
The second one is making sure that your computer and antivirus software are up to date. We always talk about running those updates, because most of the time what you see when you go and you look, whether it's on your phone or a tablet or your computer, you'll see these small updates that come through pretty regularly. And what do you see? If you look at what they say, they'll say security fixes, bug fixes, right? These are things that mean that we found some way that somebody could exploit this system and we're fixing it. And so if you don't update it, those exploitable holes and bugs are going to be left in your system. On top of that, if you do have, antivirus software that you use, which generally speaking, you probably should, then making sure that is up to date and have it set to where it's scanning every week or whatever, at least to make sure that that's happening. So be sure that you're doing that. There's also another important component here, going back to the Wi-Fi, is making sure that your Wi-Fi router and modem are up to date with updated firmware. Mm-hmm. Now, most people, if you use the modem and router that you get from like Cox or AT&T, they're typically going to automatically update those for you. But if you use a router or a modem that you bought from somewhere else, so you went to Best Buy and got your own modem, like we do here, you're going to have to consider manually updating your firmware for that. You can look on the manufacturer's website, put in the serial number. It'll tell you how to do that. It's not that difficult, but that's something you need to look at as well, because the hardware needs to be updated to fix any security bugs that they found. So take a look at that as well.
And along with those security updates, they also give you another option of do it later. Don't click that. If you don't want to do it at that moment, at least do it at night when you're done working, so that your computer can update. Because typically after an update, it's going to restart, and it's a process. So if you don't want to do it at that moment, at least do it in the evening or at night once you're done with work.
Absolutely. Good call.
The next one, really simple, and I'm sure a lot of people are doing this already because cloud-based computing has become so big, is just backing up all your files and data regularly, right? Even if you take all these steps, you are not 100% secure, right? You get to that 99% mark, but getting to that 100 is just really, really difficult. So in case something happens, and it could also just be a hardware malfunction where you might lose data. It doesn't have to be something malicious that happened. So just backing up your data and keeping a backup of your files on the cloud or an external hard drive is just really good practice. Absolutely.
I mean, I pretty much don't store anything locally that isn't also on either Dropbox or Google Drive. I just don't have anything that is stored in one place at all. I mean, that's just not what I do.
Yeah.
Because then if my computer, if it falls off the desk and breaks, no big deal. I can go on Dropbox and have everything. I can just buy a new computer, log in, and it's ready to go. So make sure you're using those services. I understand there's an expense to those because you should be using the paid versions, which have enhanced security and enhanced backup features. But that's a business expense that you need to be undertaking for sure.
Yeah. I mean, personally, I've experienced data loss, but luckily I was on a weekly backing up schedule, and I wasn't using the cloud at that time because my files were just really, really big. So I was using external drives. And even that week that my data was lost was such a hassle because I had to go back and recreate files that I had already created, and I had to remember, be like, how did I create this? So I was going through emails to see the final version and then bringing that file up to date. It was a process.
Yeah. You only need to make that mistake once.
Yep.
The next one is be very careful about mixing work and leisure activities on the same device. In an ideal world, you would have your work computer and a personal computer. Now, we're not all doing that. I get it. Like, I'm not either. None of us are. And I think that's okay as long as you understand the risks and what you're, making sure that you're being careful about things. Just understanding that when we are doing things at a personal level, we're shopping on the internet, we're opening personal emails, we're all those sorts of things. If we make a mistake there and expose our system and we're using that same device for work-related stuff, then we've also just exposed all of our work-related stuff. So you get that virus on a personal computer, then you've got that problem where it's extended over to your work stuff. And I think where this is particularly problematic is how many people have access to that computer. If it's just you, like if nobody else uses it, so my laptop, nobody uses it but me, so I've only got myself to blame. But if you've got a computer that you use for work, but now maybe you also have kids that are using it for both for fun and for school, and maybe you've got just multiple people that are using it, that becomes a huge risk if you are having people that maybe don't understand the ins and outs of being able to really understand internet security. So I really want to just throw that caution out there that if you're doing work-related stuff with client files and multiple people have access to that computer, you at some point you're going to want to look at how you're going to be careful and protect those client files if something bad happens.
Yeah, for sure. Be careful when hunting for that coupon and not clicking something really weird that promises more than you think it might deliver.
That's a great point, because people are shopping. I saw the CEO of Shopify, which is the online platform for sales. So individual people can go and set up Shopify accounts. Mm-hmm. They said every day they are having more traffic than Black Friday. Every single day they're getting more traffic on their Shopify platform than Black Friday. So
that is crazy.
People are shopping. So be careful. Be careful.
Man, that's kind of crazy to think about. I'm just kind of reliving that stat in my mind.
I know. It surprised me.
Yeah.
It surprised me.
A really easy one, which you should practice on a regular basis as well, is just, lock all devices when not in use. Just put a password on it. If your computer is idle for more than 5 or 10 minutes, 15 minutes, just have it go into screensaver mode and require a password when you come back on. It's really easy. And to make your life easier, you can also just use a password manager that, now with the new MacBooks, you can use your fingerprint to log in, so you don't even have to type a password. But yeah, lock your devices. Don't just keep them open, in case something was to happen.
Absolutely. And on top of that, what we always say, use a password manager.
Yep.
Whether it's built in, the Apple ecosystem has a fantastic password manager that will generate secure passwords and save them for you. Use LastPass, 1Password, lots of options out there that are really good. Mm-hmm. Be on the lookout for phishing emails, particularly that may relate to COVID-19. There are definitely some instances out there of people trying to utilize the current crisis as a way to take advantage of people and get access to various systems. So again, just be very careful about what you're clicking on in emails and links online and weird messages that you get on Facebook that have a link. We've all seen those. So just be careful out there. That again, just know that there's always people that are willing to do, really bad things during these types of situations to take advantage of folks. So this includes, again, the wire fraud caution that we always have of wiring instructions should not be emailed, or if they are emailed, then the person doing the wiring should call the entity receiving the wiring and verify that everything is fully accurate before they actually go out and send the money. All those kinds of things that you need to be making sure that we're doubling down on to be extra careful right now.
Right. Right now, it's not a Nigerian prince that's going to take your money. It's going to be people taking advantage of people being nice. I personally got a phishing email that was titled saying, "Hey, will you buy me some gift cards to support local businesses and I will reimburse you?" And
yep.
Luckily, whenever I see stuff like that, I always check the email address and where it's from. And it wasn't from anywhere that I recognized. So obviously that was a phishing email. But, people are taking advantage of people trying to be nice and doing good. So, you just got to be on the lookout for that.
Absolutely.
And then finally, consider cyber liability insurance. And I think that should be considered in general, because so much of our work, so many things are just happening online. And, most of the stuff is even just done in the cloud. Like you don't even have local copies of documents. Sometimes it's all online. So cyber insurance is the business insurance that's designed specifically to protect your business in the event of a hack, data breach, or system failing, any data loss and financial damages that incur from that. So I think it can be a lifesaver for businesses when something like this happens.
Absolutely. It's very, very important. So I think a lot of E&O insurances are starting to throw this in. I know as an attorney, my malpractice insurance, it's become a part of it. So it's priced in. I mean, you're paying for it, but it's almost mandatory at this point that you have it as an attorney. I mean, it's just the policy comes with cyber liability insurance.
You can't uncheck the box.
Yeah, it's like, you have to have it. Like it's almost part of like your ethical duty to make sure that you have it because it's such a risk now.
Right.
And in fact, for attorneys, this is sort of an aside, but I think that we could throw this same corollary for realtors, is that there are a lot of jurisdictions that have built into attorneys' ethical standards, just like, it's real similar to our code of ethics for realtors, having some sort of competency in data security and the use of, computers and electronics and things like that they are just building in that it is a mandatory duty that you stay competent on how to use these technologies and being technologically literate. And so we don't have that in the NAR code of ethics, but there are some other, things that you could draw a corollary to say, should I be paying attention to these things. And so it's just kind of interesting that because it's so ingrained, and especially right now, I mean, we've seen things like we're having our call here on Zoom and they went at, a few months ago, we're having 10 million active users to over 200 million active users, right? I mean, we're just seeing how people are just flooding the internet right now using new technologies and things like that. And so it's incumbent upon you to make sure that you understand how they work and understand how to use them safely so that you aren't putting your data or your client's data at risk. So that's kind of the bottom line there, is that now's not a time to relax on cybersecurity. Make sure that we're staying on top of things and being very, very safe out there while we're working in a new environment.
Yep. Be relaxed at home, but not online.
Yes, absolutely. So we hope this was a good refresher with maybe a few new tips that you haven't heard before. I know there's a couple of things that we talked about that we've never actually mentioned on the podcast before when it comes to cybersecurity. So do everything you can to be extra safe out there and make sure that you are not giving criminals and other bad elements the opportunity to prey on the real estate industry because there is so much money going back and forth, and we don't want people to be in a crisis and have a new crisis on top of that. So be careful out there. And if you have any questions about any of this stuff, please feel free to email us at podcast@okrealtors.com. We want to be a resource for you. If you've got questions about how to do any of this stuff or any follow-up questions, don't hesitate to reach out to us.
Yep. And share this podcast with someone that you might think that finds this information helpful, that could use a little cybersecurity boot camp.
Yes.
And subscribe to the podcast if you haven't done so already, and leave us a rating, write us a review, tell us how we're doing, and it helps us reach more people.
Absolutely. So until next time, we'll see you next Tuesday on Talking Real.